So I thought I'd do a little bit of a different video today. Rather than sharing an exercise, I wanted to share an insight about movement and how movement works in the body. So one of our biological drivers is to conserve energy whenever possible. In a hunter-gatherer context, it makes perfect sense. You don't want to use calories unnecessarily. You want to chill out. You want to go into rest mode whenever you can, because you're not going to have very many opportunities to do that. In our culture, that becomes really problematic because your body just wants to not use energy all of the time. And the less energy you use, the less muscles you use, and the more you're going to tend to end up increasingly sedentary. This sneaks its way in when you don't expect it to. And so I wanted to demonstrate that for you today. The difference between, I guess, you could call it an active hold and a passive hold as a body position or a resting position. So if I'm sitting on the ground and I put my hand out to support me, that's all right, no problem. You can sit however you like. Variety is good. This is the passive version. So what's happened is here I'm holding myself up using a bit of core and a little bit of arm. Now I've kind of given that work up. Gravity is holding me against my connective tissues. So my ligaments and bones and the structures that hold me together are now holding me up. That's not a problem per se. In fact, it's amazing. But on a longer term basis, using this passive positioning, as I already alluded to, you're going to use less metabolic energy. You're not using muscles to hold you up. And in a society where we use less and less energy all the time, you may wish to practice moving in ways that allow you to use more energy rather than less. Let's switch sides. Try reaching your hand to the ground, then let yourself sag and sink down and feel how different that feels. It's probably a lot easier, maybe more comfortable. Typically it is. And then you can push down and back up. So last week I made a video about carrying stuff, and carrying stuff is a perfect example of how we give work away to the world around us rather than using our muscles. So if you're carrying a heavy thing, such as a lunch basket, I'm going to fake it with my thing here. If you're just jutting your hip out and resting your heavy thing on your hip, you're not using your muscles to hold yourself up. You're using the connective tissues of your hip. And by the way, that's a really horrible thing to do to your hips on a long-term basis. That's the weakest point in your hip and tends to cause trouble if you are a regular hip poker out, whether you're carrying stuff or not. So this is a passive positioning that can not be super ideal in terms of long-term health. One that many people do is standing with their pelvis forward. So this pelvis forward stance has multiple reasons for it. It exists for many reasons, but one of the things it does is it means the connective tissues in the fronts of the hips are holding you up rather than the back muscles of your body. So you'll probably see lots and lots of examples of passive positioning if you look around. One of the ones I notice the most is leaning on stuff. So if you walk into your house to take off your shoes, notice if you're leaning against a wall to hold yourself up. You probably are, most people do. If you're hanging around the kitchen chatting, watch and see how many people are resting an arm, pushing a hip into a wall, resting their back on a wall. We are totally addicted to resting our body on things. And again, it's not really a problem, but we repetitively rest, so we often use the same shapes, and we consistently rest in a world where we probably need working a lot more than we need resting right now. So that's passive positioning, and maybe you can, as a takeaway, think about when you might be doing some passive positioning in your life and play around with the difference. And this might be a nice one to start with, is side sitting. Notice the passive, try active. Notice the passive, try active. And another one, like I said, leaning on counters, holding onto walls. We do it all the time. So watch for it and see if you can change that habit a little bit, and your metabolism and your health will both. So super happy that you joined me for sharing this movement tidbit. If you would like more tips and information about how movement works in your body and how you can get really a better life by moving better, I would totally recommend checking out my website. It's petrafishermovement.com. I have a lot of information up on my blog, and I love talking and teaching about movement, so I hope you can join me, because it really is truly one of the most life-changing, paradigm-shifting things you can choose to study. So thanks again for joining me. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.